right. Look at the schedule basically.
Testing.
All right. Good evening, everybody. As usual, please sign in either on your way in or on your way out. Have the one public comment card. I believe we stand for pledge. Real flag, nice work, team. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kim, you want to go through roll call?
Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit. Here. Dr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Hobbs.
Here.
Mrs. Lundberg. Stepped out for a moment. A little notch there. Mrs. Pascal. Here. Run off Ms. Strickman. Here. And Mr. Smith.
Here. I hear her. She's here.
She's here.
It's all right. It's all right. Board member comments. Opening the floor. I know you have one. You said you did. I thought you did. You did have one. I can't remember either. I do have a comment, somewhat unrelated. Hopefully I don't watch this too much. However many years ago that we worked with CMC to bring them into the district and annex them in, one of the conversations and promises that was just always one of those, yeah, we'll have to have faith that they'll come. So far it seems to be checking all the boxes. If you hadn't seen it, they did announce recently, I believe at their last board meeting, that they will be adding 2 new board members to the CMC board, and really wanted representation from the Salida community and West Eagle, because they had a little bit of light representation there. So to me, more validation of a good partner coming in, taxing our community, and then offering a board seat to those community members to kind of put up there. I think the first position is going to be appointed, but then plans to be, I think, the 25 election. There should be a Salida board representative to be potentially elected in CMC board. So to me, that we finally get our representation, real taxation, everything that we've talked about, and they promised. It just took a little bit of a process to get there. So appreciate and wanted to acknowledge that yet again they came through with what they said they were going to do. So, joking about that, you know, time running. Okay, nothing else there. I don't believe we had any written messages board. So we have public comment card and so that's good. We may want to get you a mic.
Great. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of the administrator and how that came about, how it was created, the process that we went through. Saw that the consequences of honoring the experience of those years of service, it becomes inequitable and it negates the value of the years of experience that are loyal and staff members that have worked in our district have recommended also, and they were not.
summary that came out, and I'm just going to walk down through there. Be happy to answer any questions. Or Jody, if you find your comment and need to jump in, you know. Well, first of all, we were on site for the audit in August, began by testing internal controls, walking through internal controls. We based our water programs. The finance staff, as usual, was very prepared, and the audit was smooth on site. Really appreciate that. Overall, we found the financial condition of the district is strong, and so we issued and we found the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. So we issued it unmodified or clean opinion as we received it. Like to talk each year about the two different presentations within the financial statements. You have the government-wide statements and you have the fund statements. So the fund statements reflect how the district keeps its books on a day-to-day basis. Adopted budgets and board reports are based on that fund presentation. The government-wide statements combine all the funds together into a single financial statement presentation based on the accrual basis. Government-wide statements bring in capital assets, debt, and other long-term liabilities that are not included in the funds. So the first statement I want to look at is a government-wide statement. It's the statement of net position, essentially the balance sheet, if you will, for the entire district. And I'll hit a few highlights here. Cash and investments.
It should have been a 2-page presentation that Tom sent.
Yep. So it's not within the bound copy there. It should be a separate thing that came out probably in the board packet. Yeah.
Highlighted it.
But I'll keep it pretty straightforward. It won't be too bad. Cash and investments for the year up 4.5%. Capital assets were down $942,000 as depreciation exceeded capital outlays this year. Liabilities sit at $51.4 million at year end. Of that, your para liability totals $33.3 million, an increase of $6.9 million. That represents the district's proportionate share of para's unfunded liability. So that proportionate share is calculated based on current year para contributions, all right? But your payment of the para liability is limited to the district state contribution rate for active employees. So you're only paying what you have coming due each year, which is based on the contribution rates. Other long-term liabilities make up $16.4 million of those long-term liabilities now paid in accordance with debt service schedules this year. Net position or equity in this area was up of the statement of net position was up $550,000. My fingers work here. All right. Getting into more familiar territory, looking at the general fund. Here, and this raised a few questions last year, but here we're looking at a ratio of the unreserved fund balance to expenditures. That sits at covering about 45 days worth of expenditures, your ratio of fund balances to expenditures for the year. So that is after an existing 12% operating reserve. So essentially you can essentially double that because you're sitting at about 12% right now as to really uncommitted funds. And it seems like a good position to be in. You know, I think the question that came up last year and since was, how does that compare to other districts? I think it compares well to other healthy districts. Healthy districts, very similar. In fact, we've worked with a number of districts that have very similar policies where they have a 15% operating reserve, which includes Tabor, so very similar to yours, same as yours, more or less. And oftentimes we see somewhere around there at 10 to 12, 13% is still there on top of that. Now there's a limiting factor there, and this is a budget limiting factor in that CDE policies say you shouldn't have unreserved fund balance that exceeds 15%. Okay, you're at 12% or 12.5%, something like that. So you're well away from that. That's not actual results. That's just a budgeting requirement. Because things go well, they're not going to make you give the money away or something like that. Does that make sense? A little more clarity from the discussion last year, hopefully. But district fund balance remains healthy and strong. Also sticking with the funds and just hitting a few highlights. General fund balance was up $448,000. It was budgeted to go down 1.6 million. That details of that revenue was up 9.4%, mostly made up of increased property taxes, and then expenses were up about 0.3% compared to last year. Federal grants activity was down about $760,000. That tracks with, it's the revenue is earned as it's spent, and that's with ESSER funds, really going away or winding down during this year. Bond redemption fund balance was up $117,000. Really, you're kind of tied into that. It's based on your mill levies and then your debt service requirements. And then finally, the capital projects fund balance was up $357,000 with $921,000 spent on capital projects this year. Internal controls, I mentioned earlier, that's a focus of the financial audit, but also it's a focus of the single audit or the grants audit. We did have one finding we brought up this year, and it's reported in the financial statements. But it was you have controls over these things, but in this case, they didn't work, and that was a PayPal was set up without following established controls. So that was set up by a staff member and used. There was no fraudulent activity that we found. It's just the appropriate controls were not followed. Aaron that has since been dealt with and corrected and that sort of thing with additional oversight to make sure that doesn't. And then the federal audit or the grants audit, we focus on testing the most significant areas that can rotate from year to year unless you have one big program, which you do, the Head Start program. So we look at that each year. Very important program for the district. Happy to report there were no compliance findings. That piece went again very smooth and during compliance with all the attributes that we tested as part of our audit. Last, I just want to express my appreciation again for entertaining our staff for a week and for having us out to do the audit again this year. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything more specific.
Tom, you answered my question about how we are compared to our peers.
Mm-hmm.
This year. And I wanted to take that thread that's been going on for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
After you left a year ago, we as a board wrestled with having to reallocate more to facilities, to a bit more as we come back from, for example, turf. So in theory, we're in a little bit better position to help with middle school, boy urinals, or track expenses.
Those
So
are
thanks for
all
that.
important stuff.
So thanks for your guidance on that. We're in a better place.
Great, thank you.
For two questions that are way above and you probably don't have an answer yet.
All right.
With the change of administration federally, and the talks of getting rid of Department of Ed and all those things, any things systematic funding changes or things of that nature?
Not that I've been made aware of. I mean, it's from the grand scale there. We'll see how far that can actually go. You know, there's still plenty of stops and stuff in the system to keep the more unusual things from passing. We'll see.
And then, like, similar lines, we have $1 billion budget deficit in the state. We're about a third of the budget each year. So I assume we're going to get some funding cuts. I mean, we've all been hearing hunky-dory good things, but anything in the circles that you hear from?
I haven't heard specifically yet. I mean, chances are going after, rescissions and that sort of thing is, the more likely if things don't turn around. David, I don't know what you've heard, but I haven't heard anything specifically. But we can guess based on how things have gone previously.
As I mentioned to Joe, I think it's not just smoke, it's just the governor trying to come up with creative ideas to kind of slow down the implementation of the new funding for schools. That's a hint that there's some validity to the gap that they've identified. And we're still really complicated. We'll see how they come in.
Karen, Sheila, anything on that topic? Just, Karen, do you feel confident in what you say we're going to have?
Yeah, for this year, I feel really confident. I mean, even sitting in the MLO match group, I feel really confident nothing's changing in the budget this year. I'm worried about next year, but at the same time, I mean, governor just gave his budget and still is proposing inflation for schools and more funding per pupil and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the Joint Budget Committee does. I sat with a senator who's on that Joint Budget Committee at my last MLO committee meeting, and she was very passionate about the fact that they would be making cuts somewhere. So, including maybe the MLO group that we're working on. So we'll see how that goes. but yeah. I mean, I have no concerns this year at this point because it's looking really solid. I am concerned about next year a little bit, but I don't know what that's going to look like.
My jaded opinion with, and they need to balance the budget.
No, I mean, he said, I mean, when they were looking at the two propositions that he ended up negotiating away in his special legislative session, he specifically said if these pass, we're putting the budget stabilization back in. So it's not ever off the table. But also, election year just happening, it would be a tough sell to get that through the safety, I think. So.
I just have a question for you three. Our MLO, that's percentage based. Are we getting close to capping at that percentage?
No, we just ran the numbers on that the other day, and we still have a little bit that we can go up on that.
So we had a top.
No.
No, she means we got the max.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about going up 1 mil every year. I thought you were talking about the.
No, I was talking about the MLO that we have that's percent based. You know, the two MLOs. The percent one, are we getting close to reaching that?
No, yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah, we're still good.
Yeah, I know we got a lot of years.
Yeah, we still got multiple years.
Let's not talk about it. Yeah,
Fair.
okay.
We can talk about it.
Well,
They might as well expect it. You're going to get a mil every year for the next multiple years.
But we haven't picked that
No.
percentage cap.
No, we have not.
Any other questions? Super big. I appreciate you going back and do that. See you next year. Sheila, thank you for your final whatever comments.
Yeah, I was gonna say thanks.
She's like, I'm leaving as fast as possible.
Coats on.
Yeah,
Sheila.
Sheila. Yeah, I'd just say thanks. Both, first of all, Tom, thanks for coming. It's a 2-hour drive for a 5-minute presentation, so thank you. Appreciate that. But ton of work during the week.
It's a 4-hour.
That's fair. That's right. And then Sheila, thanks for all the help that you gave us during that time. It was invaluable to our office. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you. Sheila, we'll see you next year at the audit. I know. Show up or something. Say goodnight. It is nice. I would have done it. All right, shifting to district reports. You want to start with the? You want to start with the? Oh, campus. Sorry, you're good. Good catch. Campus reports. We don't have Christy here, but any questions, comments for other principals, managers on anything they had in their reports? Anything you'd like to tell them while they're here in the flesh? There could be things after David, but January.
Well, I'm glad, because I'm still.
And we do have some discussion with the high school later also.
And that was too, we were trying to get to now, so you can get any questions, suggesting I can get you the right answers. December, get you an update if we can. Like health curriculum would be an example. So in January, we'll hopefully bring exactly what it is everyone can get behind, representing us for the other people.
Okay, David, Will, Aaron, district reports, whoever's taking it. Run with it.
Anything else? I don't think there's anything else you guys have. Either.
No, I mean, obviously I wasn't planning on being here, and so I sent a ton of videos, a ton of things like that. So if you have questions, I'm stoked that I get to be here tonight. But I think I sent you way more information than you were probably able to process in 4 days. So awesome. Thanks.
I just have a couple of updates because I think it's important. While we got a lot of work to do, which is always around getting better, I think it's important to note just how many things are going well. So one, we're putting a lot of those energies into communications. So you have surveys going out to staff in various ways, people just trying to be in a listening position. You've got focus groups also being developed right now to try again, talk to the community, talk to parents, try and get a sense for what people are feeling, thinking, perceptions around our district work. And something else, I've been able to sit with that kind of a teacher academic council, which has got representatives from each of the buildings, which has been great. One of the things we had on our kind of to-dos was a pedagogy or curriculum audit. And after they've been reviewing all of that, their recommendation is not to do that because they feel like it's clear enough where the gaps are. They feel like their faculty and the people they're working with can see it. And so we've just started to work on solutions, which I think is wonderful. I think it's, if we don't have to bring somebody else in or pay somebody else out to have a third-party interview, so to speak, then I think that's great. So that was it's nice to see that just moving forward as we're looking on academics. We're working on things around the central office and reorganizing the central office to try and add more academic supports while we add expectations and trying to figure out what that balance is between what's the next reasonable expectation and what's making sure we have the support for it. And I just want to give some 3 examples. Well, okay, more than that, a couple. It's about thinking skills. So I'm sitting with, at the high school, it's where a lot of my energy is right now, and working with the health team who's developing that curriculum. It has been fun because the conversation has moved from here's the next lesson to what's the thinking we need to actually teach the kids? What's that thinking outcome? And it's been just wonderful to see that conversation. I'm sitting with the social studies team at the high school next week because they want to talk about senior seminar and what's the thinking. And this is the words that they're bringing up to say we want to bounce off some ideas about what is the thinking outcomes for these courses. So 2 examples. And I was at the middle school. I was shadowing a SPED teacher, just a master. Just saw some of the best work I've ever seen in SPED. It was just fun to be there. And I also saw probably one of the best math lessons I've seen in forever from one of our middle school teachers. So I was just in the room for a couple hours, and it just gets me excited because I think sometimes with the big picture, we don't always get to highlight just how many amazing things are going on. And then we were preparing for our academic reports. I'm trying to run charts and other stuff for the big academic report that goes to all the taxpayers, all the voters, right? So I had Mr. Sampson run me some data, and we were trying to look at kind of achievement and comparisons because it's important for a taxpayer. So we could pull the fourth grade out of Longfellow because there's no other growth scores, and it's kind of the culmination of our elementary school. So we were looking at the elementary school, and I'll pass these charts around. So just see if you were looking at CMAS, the elementary school, and language arts, right? Salida is number 3 in the state in 2024. Salida is one of only 2 districts in top 5 for the last 3 years in the entire state of Colorado. If I look at ELA, though, from a growth standpoint, Salida is the number 1 in the state for the last 2 years. Like the best. Like can't do better. If you look at it from a math, and you do that, and you look at it from an achievement side of it, then Salida is number 1 in the state for the past 3 years. I mean, it's like mic drop. What else are we going to do? It's amazing. If I look at it from a growth percentile, Salida is number 1 in the state for the last 2 years and by a massive margin. And then it's not just that. It's like in math, when we look at it, Salida is the only district in the top 5 for the last 3 years of the districts. If you look at it from a growth perspective, Salida is one of 2 districts in the top 5 for the last 2 years. And I just want to make sure as a Board of Education, we're delivering on the promise of quality, and I want to make sure we celebrate that. So I'll send these charts around. I'll probably add some of that into the annual report as I'm trying to figure out how to throw pictures and stuff. But at all 3 of those buildings, we didn't get to hear from Crest tonight. You're just seeing your staff deliver some good stuff, and I want to make sure I highlighted that. So I'll pass these around. That's all I had for some updates, unless people have questions or anything I needed to dive into.
Karen, I saw your finger on the mic. I saw you ready.
I just didn't hear, is that compared to other districts our size?
All districts,
All districts?
178. Yep. And I'm sure you can change how you do the comparison and make the assumptions, and in no way can you come up with us doing anything else than great. So it's pretty exciting.
Kudos to all of you and Longfellow.
Yeah, it's all over the place, and so that was just a chart I had, and I thought I'd share that with you guys. It is, and I want to be careful because that's the hard part when you make comparisons, because we're human beings. Like, well, what about this or that? And I really like that because I look at 4th grade as the culmination of kindergarten through 4th grade. It takes all of that work. You don't end up with one thing like that without all of it. It's the same thing if I look at our 8th graders, if I look at the kids who are coming out of ECC. It's nice to kind of look at those kids at the transition points as a way to see that whole building's work and all that staff's work. So.
Kind of
Yep.
from campus reports, but also for you.
Yep.
Corey still mentioned like stuff being challenging. Jesse mentioned like capacity issues, just with managing buildings and instruction and all of that. So is there an update on subs? And then I assume like these capacity issues are going to be part of the bigger budget conversation on what academic supports and positions you guys will be asking for.
I'll answer the capacity question. I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out is what are reasonable expectations? What else do we need to add? What do the staff feel like that next space is? And then do we have the supports? I think everyone sees a need for more academic support capacity. So that's definitely in the mix and what people are trying to come up with. So we're coming up with the designs, and I think by February, March, right, we'll be right on point to be able to make those recommendations, which will also coincide with when the bargaining team gets together and starts to look at some of their issues, so we can look at them comprehensively. So I'm going to let principals talk about subs or talk about capacity, either one.
fill those spots and have different
this week's you back into your role, there's times of the year, you know, where we're running, you know, our assessments and so on. So we wouldn't have been able to have that flexibility. Just having, you know, like with 50 employees in our building, you know, this is what we're organization and having kids and stuff happens. We do our best. So when I put those in my challenges section, it's kind of harness sort of thing. I just want to be very yeah.
So if we have to, we get to work on it. But we have had this recently, on a set occasion, which is good. We work and we can't work and we are part of this. So we practice it more. We've ever had enough. Of course, kids and parents as staff members is a big deal. I don't even think it's a pay issue. I think it's just it's the nature of the beast issue right now in education, and that's kind of where we are with subs. I reach out to other districts regularly. Hey, what's your latest, greatest substitute solution? They're like, oh, I thought I was going to call you and ask you the same question. So it's kind of where we are. But where we are picking up more, and I think in these shorter seasons, we'll start to pick up a few more as well. And it's just difficult with subs because many times we're not trained as educators. We're trained as something else, which is a warm body in the classroom, and somebody that likes kids, you hope, but they may not be the person that you need to teach that geometry class or that 7th grade math class.
I would go ahead, Karen.
Have the staff and kiddos been healthy so far? Nothing going around, no, they're, no, sorry, bad question. Oh.
You can tell she's
Sorry.
No, we do have whooping cough in the community as an example. That's moving through the community, and so there's definitely illnesses that are going through. I would also on the substitutes that sometimes it's not as that we are also struggling. If there's someone interested in like a classified position, we've probably been able to find them a job. And then what is left now is really staying open for long, long amounts of time. And really, when you talk about substitute drivers or substitute cooks, you've got to get those positions filled, and those are hanging open. And then you get your substitute, which most of the managers make a swing position almost. They're kind of trying them out so that they can move them in when that opening hits. So we're one, and in most of our departments there, we're like custodians. You're missing one to fill out the whole team, and then you're missing the next two, which are really your substitutes, which is really frequently those people that we slide in when the openings happen. So we are seeing weakness in our workforce right now in those positions, which is similar and different from our certified positions.
Okay. Any other questions for David or campus leaders? Okay. Thank you all for joining us. For those of you that want to go back home, have a good night. We'll take a 5-minute break as everybody departs and then get back started.
Mics, check your mics.
Mic on. Okay, here we go, guys. Consent agenda. Looking for a motion to approve. Thank you. Questions, comments? Ready for a vote? Whenever you want.
Dr. Breckenridge Pettit. Dr. Hill. Mr. Hobbs. Mrs. Lundberg. Mrs. Haskell. Mrs. Shipman. And Mrs. Smith.
Okay, jumping into discussion items, we have SHS Pathway Development. Jesse, David, take it away.
Okay. Pathways. I don't think these are a surprise to you. We put this in the board report maybe in September, where that was probably your first look at pathways. This is kind of just an update where we are at on pathways. You know, the vision of the high school is that every single kid within the high school can verbalize and articulate what their college or career pathway is. And this gives kids a sense of purpose within the high school. The last thing we want is for a kid to say, why am I taking this course? What's the purpose behind it? I don't understand why I have to take this course. This is our answer. Graduation pathways to give a student a purpose within the high school and have them passionate about what their learning is, and they're able to self-guide their learning. So a lot of this is done through our advisory with individual conversations that our advisors are having with students in advisory. If you look behind the graduation requirements, there's 7 different pathways that we constructed this year, where we all sat in a room, David, counselors, Colorado Mountain College, teachers, and myself and Abigail Cooksey, and hashed out what these 7 pathways look for. So skilled trades and applied technology, health sciences, STEM, human services, social services, education, communication arts, digital media, business entrepreneurship, and outdoor recreation. So kids can review those with their advisors in advisory and really determine what their interest is. This isn't a pathway that, kind of pigeonholes them into a specific lane, but gives them options on where they go in high school and what courses they should take to move on to after high school. So I think the other important part, and this was before I got here, if you look on the front page at graduation requirements, graduation requirements were created where there's a lot of flexibility in electives. So if you look down at the bottom there where it says 8 credits of electives for somebody that is college bound, or 12 and a half credits, elective credits for someone that is going into some type of career pathway. They have a lot of flexibility in picking their courses in that pathway, right? So that's helpful. So what we've been doing this year, each first Tuesday of the month,
We have a specific pathway focus where kids that are interested in that pathway come down to the auditorium, and we really drill down into a specific pathway for kids where they have an opportunity to ask questions. Then they can go back to their advisor and really work through a 4-year plan on their graduation pathway and what makes sense to them. I know this has been a discussion in the making for a long time. I think David threw out the year 2008 to me. It's finally coming to fruition at the high school. And it's really exciting. You know, I think being in a high school for a long time, giving kids purpose is super important. And right, this does that. I think about my own kiddo who school's not the most important thing to him. He doesn't like it. And giving him purpose and that outdoor recreation pathway, you know, he's coming out of high school with 3 credentials, industry credentials, and a number of courses that set him up for outdoor recreation, which excites him. He has a purpose. That's kind of my presentation. You know, I wanted to open it up to questions. If you look through the pathways, you know, we have occupations geared to somebody with a high school diploma and certifications, and then occupations geared towards a bachelor's degree, so kids can drill down into that, and then high school classes that they should take, and then recommended classes or supporting classes through CMC or the high school that makes sense for the direction that they want to go. So pretty exciting stuff. If you look down at recommended industry credentials, those are credentials that they can get in the high school right now, and there's a number of them in different pathways. So, questions? Jody?
Would you give me an example of Jake's 3 credentials, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so he has his, he's working on his wilderness first responder right now. He has his fire red card. So once he turns 8, and he received that through CMC. And he also has his wilderness first aid course. So, you know, 3 industry credentials where he can go to, you know, whatever, ski patroller, raft guide, that type of stuff. But, you know, it's opened up the whole idea of firefighting to him. He's probably going to go on to college, but has that firefighting to fall back on also with the credentials that he has and some of the coursework he's done through CMC, which is really exciting for a kiddo that struggles in high school. We gave him purpose and direction. Yeah.
And then I've forgotten the acronym, but it's one of the 3 advisors. It's not CRISPR, but it's to take those tests, to take the credential tests.
CDIP?
CDIP, thank you.
Yeah.
CDIP, are students starting to take those exams? Those are my 2 questions.
Well, the way CDIP works is for any of those credentials, they're marked down on the CDIP list. So right, once Jake takes his wilderness first responder test as a wilderness first responder, we submit that to the state and get compensated for it. Yeah, so that's happening. Yeah, Aaron, I'm trying to remember the check we just received last year for CDIP. Do you remember?
Yeah, we just got it for last year. It's 8,300 that we got this year for last year, and then we expect it to be quite a bit higher this next year because we have a person that's dedicated to getting those credentialing done. So I'm expecting closer to like 23-ish next year.
So Cooksy's our CDIP coordinator right now, and she's gonna hit it out of the park. CDIP. How did
It's
Colorado
No, it's. Yeah, I got a second.
Career Development Incentive Program?
Yes, thank you.
Right. So what it is anytime one of our students gets one of these work credentials in high school, we submit that to the state and get compensated between 500 and close to $1,000. People are catching on to it now, right? Canyon City has been very successful with it. And a couple of years ago, they put the Canyon City rule in where students can only get compensated for one work credential, because they were making, I think the 1 year, Bill, the principal at Canyon City, said they made $300,000 off of CDIP, right? And I hate bragging about another school, but Canyon has it figured out, and you go down there and work-based learning is on fire, right? Because of this CDIP money coming in. We're trying to follow that model. We're a smaller school, right? It's a little bit harder, but it's a carrot out there to chase, for sure.
And also be aware, Jim Wilson is representative of one of these key pieces of legislation was setting up that system. Just as awareness for
And Cooksey's off and running with it right now.
Questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm learning.
Sure.
So do these requirements, do they coincide with state requirements? These?
Yes.
So that's, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the credentials, these industry credentials, are they getting those through CMC? Or
Some of them are through our classes. Some of them are through CMC. Oh, I'd say the majority of them are through CMC classes.
so then are we getting double funding from CDIP and then CMC for those?
That's probably an answer for you.
That's not a simple question.
Ah.
If they're one of our kids in classic 9 to 12, then we've already got funded. And then depending how we pay CMC for that tuition, so it wouldn't be double funding in that case. The exception, of course, is another program the high school's been doing is Ascent, which is like a red shirt fifth year program. And Dr. Brockman has been leading that charge, trying to get her feet wrapped around under us on that one. Whereas we are getting full funding for those kids. And it pays more than the bill is. So that would be an example where everybody's kind of in a win-win scenario in that. So what we're trying to do though is teach the kids, if you can have a pathway, you can start to see how you can take all of these things and weave them together. And all of a sudden I'm a fifth year senior. I'm getting these credentials here. On our side, we're pulling funding here, and you're starting to weave together a solution that really empowers kids to decide where they want to go. I'm gonna take another story for Jake because he's at our house a lot. And a year ago, there was nothing of interest. There was no college. There was no vision of anything. And because of that red card and because of those credentials, it shifted to I can, and then he started to imagine, and then shifted to, well, now college is an option. And that matches human development, right? We were just talking about that earlier, but it's also, that's how those programs help a kid develop their own internal conversation where they start to imagine for themselves. And once they imagine for themselves, they start to go, oh, how do I do this? And then they start to figure out how to make the system work for them.
And there's multiple stories like that throughout the high school. Fred Maxwell's business internship really supports that also. With giving kids purpose besides sitting in an algebra class, which is important, right? But connecting that algebra class with the pathway is super important, right? And something I think we've missed in high school for a long time. So we're still at the beginning stages, right? Advisory, depending on the advisor, sometimes the advisement is inconsistent, right? Which we're working on. Have some documents in place where every single advisor should be advising kids on 4-year plans, graduation pathway, and course selection. So working on that consistency piece, so every single is getting graduation pathways.
This is awesome. Anecdotally, I'm getting feedback from kids that are super psyched when they see this pathway and again feel like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Right.
Awesome. And how confident are you that like we can get kids into all of these classes? Like when a kid signs their pathway, because do you know like what
All these
percentage
are
of-
offered,
Okay. Like,
but
so,
you know,
for example, sophomores
Yeah.
who go to school and they register and there's not a class for them. Do you know what percentage we're at with that?
I don't, Jen, but I can tell
And I could
you.
have asked earlier, only
Yeah.
because I'm hearing more and more of them
Yeah.
that say they couldn't get a class, they have a TA, and as long as there's a cushion built in, awesome.
Well, here's the great thing.
Yeah,
With that other thing I put in the board report, the Bell proposal,
yeah, yeah.
that's going to help a lot,
That'll make a big difference,
right?
Okay.
Because all the classes will be offered at the same time, right? Where now we have different modalities of classes, right? And it's a 4-block schedule. Now we're going to 8 classes over the entire year, so more kids have opportunities to select more courses, right? And then when you think about it, some of those CMC classes that kids take, they're offered on like a Monday or a Wednesday, right? So now a kid can take that class on a Monday and Wednesday and then fill something else in on Tuesday and Thursday, right? So
versus
it creates
an entire semester where they miss
Absolutely.
the window and
where they have
that's
an open block,
Every-
because they on Monday and Wednesday they have a CMC class, right? Through Tuesday and Thursday they can't take anything. So now we're going to an AB schedule where we can fill that whole day every day. The worst thing for a teenager is to have an open block. You know, I would argue.
Well,
I would argue some of our high achieving kids that are upperclassmen may need that open block
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
stuff done. No freshman and sophomore should have an open block.
Well, and I think
Right.
it is creative, at least in my experience. The kids with an open block are with a teacher and doing TA, and so like grading and assisting. So it's
But are they
good,
learning?
just they're not getting.
Right?
I mean, I would argue that's as important as a class, but they're not getting credit for it.
Yeah, they're not getting credit.
Yeah.
So
I would add, I mean, if it's not this year, you're going to see a request coming that says we need to add more capacity on the elective side. Right? That's going to be the
We
ones,
struggle.
if it's not this year, it's going to keep coming back at us, because as you get kids more and more engaged, and you settle into the 28 credits that they've moved to, you're going to continue to see a need for another person to go to add more sections. It's coming, which will, I mean, they've got tons of work to do, but just to let you know, there's a capacity issue that's going to be asked of us at some point.
Is there a pretty big focus with the juniors right now? Because I feel like they're kind of a little behind the ball,
they are behind the ball.
but maybe still have a chance to take more meaningful electives next year.
Absolutely.
If we carefully do that.
Yeah.
See, I have a question. Can you give us an update on what you're doing for that senior seminar, that new class for the?
Well,
Uh-oh.
we haven't talked to David yet.
Oh, okay. So let's wait till you guys talk and then you can present.
They've got me next week scheduled to come in and hear their
Yeah.
ideas.
We have some great thoughts about the way that's scheduled, and you know, it's about citizenship and how we produce good citizens. And we have a framework that we've outlined that we're going to present to David next week, and
On shift.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I wish I could teach it, but I don't really have capacity.
So are all of these like elected courses that have the 4 digits? Those are all CMC courses.
What's that, Joe?
Like if you look at the pathways, like bio, 21 they're all the CMC courses.
Correct.
And then I should know this, but correct me. Tell me. Like looking on the first page, 1.5 for PE and health.
Correct.
So,
Half of that credit's health.
and then 1 full credit for PE. Are we
Yes.
giving credit for when they're in athletics if they meet whatever minimum requirements?
Yes. Yep. There's an application they can fill out that the counselors have.
Not just-
Yes.
Does that mean if they're in sports, they can get that PE credit? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. They can have PE credit for the sport.
I recall something that, was it 25 or 25 per sport, or is it?
Joe, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. If
So
it's
like that
one
was-
sport or 2 sports, I can't. I'd have to look that up.
I believe it had to be
2 to get a half or
two
something.
to get.
Yeah. I'll find out.
Varsity season.
I don't know if it was even varsity seasons, Mandy. I think it was just participating in a sport. Yeah.
And then for just general, Joe Smith has no idea what he wants to do, but he's planning to go to college. Like, are we going to direct me to a pathway, or is it just going to be a general ed?
Now we'll direct you to a pathway. What's your interest in? Do you like science, Joe? Are you a math guy, or are you
I want to make money without working.
right?
See, like,
But that's the purpose of advisory, where our advisors are having individual conversations with kids, a relationship with them. If it was my kid, you would know right away. This kid is probably an outdoor rec kid, and starting to have conversations with them about that, right? And it's not pigeonholing a kid into a specific pathway, but just exploring their interests. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, my biggest question would be, it's not like specifically outlined for, I want to be that kid that gets my associate's degree, goes straight to, Ivy League school, and I'm going to be a doctor, or whatever it may be, or, maybe it's a pathway to that, maybe not. Could be through horizon.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I think it's just about having conversations with kids and seeing what their interests are, and right. They don't necessarily have to follow that pathway specifically, but that's your interest. These are some courses to consider, right? And that might change from freshman year to sophomore year to junior year to senior year. It's developmentally appropriate, right? And then they're going to go on to college and change their major 3 or 4 times too. So,
Well, what I was going to say, which I always advise my kids, it's just as important finding out what you don't want to do. So maybe
Absolutely.
they pick a choice, they go into it, and if they hate it. Well, that's good. You
Yeah,
don't want
for
to do
sure.
that, right?
and what Blackburn always says too is we're training kids to look at a goal and how do you achieve a goal? How do you have a purpose and work towards a goal, right? And just training them in that way instead of just kind of floating through high school, which is, a lot of them will do without direction. Yeah.
Proud SHS. Okay, any other questions? Lots of high school stuff the next few months, so.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
And you'll see lots of high school stuff because I think they're getting it done. And so there's lots to celebrate.
Okay, next discussion item, SEL framework. Had a good work session, discussed, went over some things. I don't know if we're ready to try to assign who's taking the writing papers, or what other conversation or thoughts have come from since earlier.
And maybe I'll just start. And Jen and Ben have been kind of helping me. I'll think through this with Jessica and trying to make sure we're not going off the rails. I don't know if either one of you want to add some thoughts to what we initiated here at the work session.
Oh, well, not yet, because it's not well established. So that's,
So far, so
yes.
Good progress.
The thing is, I think in order to take a path, you have to just establish that you're taking a path. And so I'm really happy about that part. And now the exact content of each grade and each subject matter, no, I can't say that I'm for or against anything. But just the fact that we're trying to get as we mentioned before, the pendulum of too little SEL or too much SEL, I think finding a range in there. And then the other, just the guardrails of things that are left to the home or left to individuals to talk about, I think is appropriate. Yeah, I was thinking of something else. And also, I think we all need to think about how we can, whether it's through position papers or integrating something into a policy where the things we indicate should or should not be taught, that actually has teeth associated with it, that they're not guidelines, that this is the way it is. And even if those lines are really broad, so they give people a lot of discretion, it is fine. But I think having some, I think the community is going to want some strict guidelines in some places. So we got to figure out how to implement that. I'm guessing it's going to be through policy, but I think we need to figure that out.
Well, do you think that's mostly specifically in regard to the health curriculum?
Yes.
And in terms of health curriculum, like we have state standards to follow. So do you think that those are good enough guardrails to make sure that our curriculum falls within state standards, which it has to?
I think falling within state standards is appropriate, but just looking at like what Mr. Holt presented with the ETL or ETR, maybe ETR. There are, yeah, there are multiple organizations that present curricula that fall within and fulfill state guidelines, but they're really different. That one that he presented, I looked at, I thought it was really good, but I've also been exposed to others that I didn't think were really good. So just because there are state standards, I don't think is specific enough.
This is not a full state curriculum.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, I think writing a policy of specifically what health curriculum includes could be really challenging, and potentially I would more lean on the side of we choose a curriculum that we know falls within state guidelines. I don't know how you put that into
I think that's one of the things I've struggled with in my career is not being able to comprehensively present that. Because you put the generic in the policy and the curriculum's over here, but I've never been able to see it published in such a way where you get that full intent, what policy may or be directly addressing it or indirectly addressing it, what research the board really feels pertinent, as well as here's the curriculum, because the curriculums will change across the years. You want to slide that in and out, but the board's position may stay the same. So I think the health curriculum's a good one where what's that outcome you really want out of that class? Because you can change the textbook, so to speak, and have keep the textbook. You could that variable versus what's the board's outcome intent, and in a little harder topics like that is really important to put out there, because then it tells the teacher and puts them in a safe place. I don't like our staff being in places where we're just hoping they guess what it is the community is going to protect. Like, that's not a safe place to put staff. I want them to be in a place where they're like, okay, here's the outcome, the intent, and they can decide how much they like that or not, but those are guardrails in which they be protected to go in and have hard conversations that can be complicated and not everyone's going to fully agree. But if we publish that, then I think we can enter into it. So it's kind of the concept I'm trying to develop: policy, curriculum, and trying to let the board put it together so there's not confusion for staff.
What's the time frame? Maybe the aspirational and the drop dead, if you will.
On this, I think you just take it bit by bit. I think is what's most important. I would say the next one for you is phones and social media. I think the board's got that lined up. Next month, your work session is talking, listening, that policy and that intent and that research. I think you develop that position paper as a board. I think there's some things that need to be solidified that have had rough edges for too long. Some of that's what we call pandemic influence, but get the bullying policy, curriculum intent, print it, done. Staff have good programs. Like, let's get that checked off so that the community can have confidence that it's in place. That would be an example of maybe also in the next 6 months. Or I think some of these other things can be maybe roughed in and left in a rougher state, where you're like, hey, staff, I'm more comfortable with you putting those first drafts out and doing that piece, because the board's capacity is focused on something like phones and social media, or something like health curriculum. Those are the two big ones in front of you. So you might say, hey, staff, knock out the other 5 or 6 of these here, please. We'll check them over and put them in place until we have capacity or desire to go back in and really own them. So that might be some aspirations there. I picked 2. You got to pick the health.
I mean, I would like to move more quickly with health because it's already been years and years and years of not having a comprehensive curriculum, which means, in my opinion, we've already sent years of students through the high school with significantly lacking health education that they should have been given. So I would like to not continue to push that off and send one more class of kids through with poor instruction.
I would definitely, ideally like January, right? Kids come back because a new batch of kids will start that.
I'm thinking December to see where on that particular topic that curriculum is there. So it's being presented and approved. And I'm sure there's going to be areas where people are like, well, I want more on this, but we can improve maybe 90% more if we continue to dial in the remaining pieces. But that's the timeline. So December, you got one this month. December, you'll get another installment so that we can do a vote in December. Otherwise, January, we're ready to go.
So is what we have from Jesse right now, like you're saying installments, is that not the full comprehensive health curriculum that he's looking at?
That is a great example of curriculum not being as black and white as we would like it to be sometimes. That is your foundational text that is approved by the Department of Ed to meet the standards, has not been approved by the Department of Public Health, and it does not tell me as a teacher what I'm teaching every day, to what degree I'm teaching that or this, what assessments. It doesn't really go into what are the outcomes that are going to come out of this lesson. And on an issue of things that are a little more complicated like this, I want to see those things dialed in a little more. Then geometry, I can handle some more roughed in curriculum that would be similar to what you have. But I'm asking the staff to go deeper and more precise on a topic like gender, sexuality. Like, I want to know not exactly what you're going to say, but I get questions like this and give an example. What is your potential response and what's the outcome? And I want to know what's the assessment at the end of that lesson and unit, because that tells me a lot about the outcome and the intent. And I think parents, that's the sort of thing that they want to know versus the general. I'll give you another example is sometimes teachers frequently they'll have a curriculum, but this one lesson's still good. Or this one unit's not great, so they bring in something else from another curriculum. Well, who really validates that? I'm not sure it's that big a deal if we're talking about 4th grade math. Getting all the results, and there's good stuff there. And then there's these topics on human development that I think the community has more interest in, not letting those have vague issues. So it's a long answer to yes, you have the curriculum. Before I would want you to approve it in the community to feel good about it, I want to have more detail on how exactly are you going to handle this issue? Like, how are you going to deal with that? I can't say it. Mass body index. No, I said
BMI.
BMI.
Body.
BMI, body mass index. I'm like, I can't get it right.
Is that
Um,
really so in?
Yeah, because you need to talk about nutrition. Nutrition still has to deal with those things. If you're going to use that, how are you going to use that? Right?
Yeah.
I'm interested in more precision on topics like that, and these kind of social, emotional, human development outcomes, because we don't have 100% agreement in society, and parents need to know and be able to engage that with clarity.
So David, would you say that that is a reasonable expectation for us as a board with this subject to see the curriculum and to see maybe lesson plans or how things are going? Because yes, I would not ask this of geometry, but I would expect this from a health. And I'm not saying we need to survey the public, because the public has the opportunity to decide who chooses the curriculum and comment on it. But I think I'm not the only one who would like something a lot more specific. Right? Is that reasonable?
I think it is reasonable. It's definitely within your authority, so you can start at that level. I think it's also reasonable, and I think it's also wise. Because I don't want to put a staff member into a complicated, let's say, political scenario and say, best of luck. That's not a fair space to put staff member in that human development. I think that we need to have those conversations with as much clarity as we can and provide those guardrails. I don't think we're taking away professionalism in those spaces. I think we're protecting professionalism with being clear at a more granular level. But I think the community, regardless of which side they might identify in a political continuum, have an interest in understanding the granular level. So I think as board members, you have a responsibility to consider it, which may be different than use geometry. So that's how I'm approaching it.
To clarify, we were presented with a curriculum that was recommended to us by the high school, or by you, or by the state, or all of the above.
The high school worked with the Department of Ed and other organizations and selected that one. And the Department of Ed did approve it. It's actually been funded through a grant by the public health side. And we're working with them to make sure that they find approval on that as well. And that's at that not 30,000 foot level, but that's at that large unit outcome level.
So I dug into the scope and sequence, and I'm pleased, I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
So you're saying that, when does this begin? When we're going to use this curriculum?
That's what I'm saying.
January.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
all I needed to know. Okay, yeah, just making sure.
So like this, right? It's like alcohol and other drugs differentiate between over-the-counter medications, prescription meds, and illicit drugs.
Mhm.
Is there then like a lesson plan for the teacher, but you're asking them to create their own?
Yes. No, that. Now
That's
we're
what I'm a
now
little
we're getting more
confused by,
granular,
like,
just
is-
the profession of education. What we are talking about when we say academic support, so now we're in the bigger picture conversations. Do teachers, you just assume they're making daily lesson plans or unit lesson plans, and during a block period making kind of 3 or 4 lesson plans for 100 minutes? And to what degree are we saying, I want to see this level of a lesson plan, or monitor this level of a lesson plan? These are the conversations we're having at multiple levels right now, trying to get staff input. What is that? And that, to me, that list doesn't tell me enough. It tells me it's approved and fits within the broad spectrum of the state standards, and it's been, but it does not tell me enough specificity of how they're going to handle. That was a very light,
Well, and
non-controversial
that's
topic.
why I chose that.
Right.
But I guess that's my question is like, is this curriculum usable enough for our staff? Like, is that all our staff gets? Is that it says differentiate between over-the-counter meds, prescription meds, and illicit drugs, and then they have to make their own lesson plan?
It comes with lesson plans.
So it
It comes
comes
with
with, like, a
sample
book
lesson
that
plans. It does.
So
And
really,
any good teacher might say,
Yeah.
okay, there's a starting point. Now I'm going to develop my plan for the day.
so
using
there's
that.
really only a few probably spicy ones from here as
Yeah.
that you're asking for them to give more specific. It's like you're not asking for them to write you out how they're going to deal with it. They just like that. We can probably follow a lesson plan. I just don't want to overcomplicate this. Like I feel like,
Yeah.
and I don't want to expect them to have to go through and show me every lesson plan.
Right.
The
And I
entire
also want to
health
make sure
curriculum.
there's more than just that space. There's making sure that it's a semester course, so we're using a semester amount of time, and we're filling that time. I mean, so there is, that's not necessarily looking at, is this a complicated issue or the community needs to put a guardrail in? This can just be, how are we really prepared to teach this course that is new? It's only been in the high school for a year, technically. This would be the third semester, since the board's added it back in. So I think that's not sufficient from my perspective. It may be sufficient enough from a board's perspective. And I think, but I want to make sure that those staff that are in those complicated situations, it's not all of them, we've had a sense to really get behind them and say, this works. There's some of these things I'd like to see what their assessment is. Because I think that tells us a lot of intent and make sure that we can support it, as some people have different opinions. Jump in, Joe.
I mean, I guess I just also would like to clarify big picture that I don't think we are a board that is dying to like see lesson plans from like a history teacher or a language arts teacher. That this is a very special case.
Yeah.
Just in case that needs to be said.
I appreciate that. Some people will need to hear that piece. So health is one thing. You got the phones coming out. There's 2 positions that the board ought to take. But some of these other ones, I've worked for years in this district and other districts, and I never had a position really clearly stated that I could also push into and say, I disagree with you, and we have a dialogue about your position, which then is where your policy is. That's why I'm excited that there's a framework to be able to guide some civil dialogue on things that human development is not like geometry. People perceive it in different ways and perceive the right supports. Our district wants to be a place where it's skill-based. It's one. I'm not interested in teaching the values, so to speak. We're interested in what are the skills of how to manage my own self and also connect to others so I don't get in the way of learning. And that's that balance piece. I'm really excited to see individuals like Jessica really leading us into too little, and you're probably not supporting the kids enough. Too much, and you're actually getting diminishing returns. And I'm very excited to see that balance being presented. I think it's going to help everyone walk through it. So you asked a really black and white question, and I don't think we've been back to it in 20 minutes.
It's fine. I struggle to think that, like, we're ready to start saying, you start drafting this position paper, and then we evaluate it as a board, and like come to a consensus position, or come to you outlining here kind of the 2 front runners, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I think with this conversation and absorbing this data and what we've seen and not been able to fully read through tonight, and then kind of coming back in the coming months, whether it's kind of some time when we're at CASB together, whether it's the January all-day retreat grind, if we have one type of thing. So I think I just want to know kind of the pace of how quickly we need to take this on versus other priorities. If we have some time to, the phones are coming, and the health curriculum coming in for the next 2 months. Seems like those are the 2 places to focus, and then the other ones can be kind of longer term, map it out, kind of similar to policy audit, if you will. So you're not intense. So I'll take that as a good plan to go forward and diving in on a few topics and start figuring out ways to tackle the others. So, okay. Action items. All good? Anybody need a break? Good. Okay, here we go. All right, looking for an approval on second reading policies. A motion. Jody, Jen. Any questions, comments?
have a question. On the third and fourth item on vandalism that we want to repeal and kind of leave it more up to the police. I kind of had a question about if they can suspend or expel students, or is that something only schools can do? If that is what they choose to do as a choice for vandalism.
For vandalism, any suspension or expulsion in schools, 100%, but any kind of criminal investigations would be under them already. So the recommendation from the lawyer was basically you're creating a space where you're limiting yourself versus just keeping it nice and neat and clean. Your current code of conduct allows you to talk to a kid who did a small to a large vandalism thing and engage the police. This actually makes it more complicated by adding in this policy. It's not a CASB core policy.
So it is elsewhere that we still have a say in the consequence if they have vandalism on the school property.
We have a relationship to their school programming, not a relationship to any criminal charges that may or not be.
Okay.
By getting rid of this policy, it doesn't force us to press charges or not press charges. We are just like a homeowner who has the right to do that stuff. In addition, from the homeowner's metaphor, we also can say you're going to be suspended for 3 days or defer, have a 10-day suspension, but defer the final 7 on the behavior plan.
Okay.
We can still do all those things.
Okay, I didn't see that, so I was making sure that was somewhere else.
I want to just real quickly hit the very last one on that list, which is LBDB. Mandy and I have gone back and forth. We sought some legal counsel on this. So we are definitely staying with this recommendation where we would have LBDB. Number 1 would be our only policy, and number 2 would be repealed. Currently, for some reason, because of CASB's changes, we have both in the books. We can't have both. Number 1 means you guys still are in charge of any charter school applications, right? It's your sole authority. If for some reason, an example, our Montessori school, you guys were like, this is not going to be part of our educational programming, but we release you to kind of pursue your dream on your own, then you have that choice. And so that's why you want to stay with the first one and repeal the second. Did I say that well?
Okay. Any other-
I just mentioned to David earlier on the phone, like the facility improvements, FBC, FBCR, are still a little convoluted in terms of which priority scale we're using for facility improvements. So I don't know if we need to talk through that as a group or if we just need you and Aaron to fix the priority codes so that they're all the same. So CASB's has just 4, like priority 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas we've kind of been using a 1 through 8 scale. And then when we go through the capital improvements, you guys usually put in there, right? Like if it's 1 through 8, so we kind of know.
We will rewrite those and
So we
have those ready
just
for
need
third
it to be
reading.
rewritten.
And we'll get those with what are more detailed,
1 through 8.
the ones we've been using for a while. We will rewrite those and have those ready for third reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, ready for a vote?
Dr. Pettit? Dr. Hill? Mr. Hawes? Mrs. Lundberg? Mrs. Haskell? Ms. Shipman? And Mr. Smith?
Okay, looking for a motion to approve CBT tentative agreement for spring 2024 to be realized in the 24-25 amended budget. Questions, comments? I'm going to be a real naysayer here. Okay, I'm gonna make a few points and rhetorical questions. Aaron, there's roughly 40 people, if I recall, you told me, that are kind of on this. I'm going just to the back pages, the back page down.
2017, 18.
That
2017.
has been part of the controversy since we started this conversation.
Okay, yeah,
Give or take 40 people, you told me?
roughly if I remember that correctly when we looked at it last time. I think when we discussed it, we were talking, I would need to go back and look at my notes. I don't want to say something that's I'm way off of, but
Okay, my point would be, are we going to go to those 40 people and ask them to get back their base pay increase from that
I'm assuming that's the rhetorical question.
year. Correct. So, I mean, it's just, we talked about this a lot for the last few years. Part of my contention with it has been, you know, the spring 24 tentative agreement. When it was presented to us, we were all having the conversation of, is CBT a legitimate partner that we should be taken seriously? And then they came out with this tentative agreement, and the waters have calmed, things have gotten better, and it's kind of continuing with the same recommendation. So, and I think we all struggled with the back pay. I appreciate and validate kind of the reasoning behind it now. Also very much appreciate the tenure of those X number of people that are with the district, but I'm going to be very happy for you all, but you'll see it in my vote and we'll move on. So.
I have a question. How much would that cost? Off the top of your head.
26, just the
26,
16, 17 step. I mean, yeah. That's how we can. Is it on the sheet?
55,000 was the estimate.
Yeah.
Per year? 55,000 per year.
No. It's.
52 to increase all those people.
I mean, Ben, to answer that question, per year, I mean, everybody that stays would be up a year, but it's a one-time increase to get them up one step, because that's that cost. So is it technically more per year? Yeah, until some of them leave and so on and so forth over time. So
It's not exponential. It's not every year an extra
Yeah.
52. It goes up by 52, and you have to maintain.
There's a certain portion of the way.
Correct. Raises your base water.
Very important.
Okay, ready for a vote?
Dr. Beckman Pettit? Aye. Dr. Hill?
Nay.
Mr. Hawks?
Aye.
Mrs. Lundberg?
Aye.
Ms. Haskell?
Aye.
Ms. Shipman?
Aye.
And Mr. Smith?
Nay. Okay, moving on to for a motion to approve resolution 2425-03, transfer all revenue from the sale of 314 Clifford Avenue to Fund 43 for debt service expenditures.
To be clear, that's the duplex building.
yes. Yeah, I mean, this is a formality on the strategic side of things. You're going to see this every
According to
time.
Robert's rules of motion.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I need a-
Sorry.
Okay, now.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Robert's rules. Year one. I know. Now I know. I haven't had Joe get angry at me before. I'm very stressed out right now. No, yeah, I mean, it's a formality. You're going to see this on the strategy for the HEA is for a lot of these assets to be moved this way, and it's just a formality for the accounting that has to happen for the audit next year. So you'll see this when we take this approach with HEA, when we take this approach with Kesner. You have to transfer it out of the general fund into Cap 43.
So good accounting for us to move the monies to where it's going to be appropriate. Take it out of the general fund.
It's important to be clear, like with Janae. So if we sell for CBT, we're going to take those revenues for facility. So if you see a line that is a little bigger, we have cordoned it off because of our growth. Don't take it personally.
Okay, any other questions? Ready to vote?
Dr. Beckman Pettit? Dr. Hill? Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Lundberg? Aye. Mrs. Haskell? Aye. Ms. Shipman? Aye. And Mr. Smith? Aye.
Looking for a motion to approve the redistricting. Any questions on this one? We talked about it last month, went over it. No real issues with it, it seems, so. David, any other comments about the redistricting?
Nope.
Okay.
Ready for vote?
Ready for vote?
Dr. Breckenridge Pettit? Aye. Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Lundberg? Aye. Ms. Haskell? Aye. Ms. Shipman? Aye. And Mr. Smith?
Looking for a motion to approve the master facility plan.
I'll move to approve those facility. I'll second.
Thank you.
We maybe just let
Everybody grabbing some papers. I assume that they have some questions or comments that they want to go through.
Okay.
Something.
I would just add for you, it was sitting out there for community feedback since May. There was 2 people who provided feedback. Both felt like it was understandable and everything else, and they didn't provide any extra insights on what they would prefer to see. So from that process, that didn't yield any magic input.
Have there been any changes then since?
The only major changes is rewriting it from an English teacher's perspective to make it sound better. There's been significant parts of that. The additions would be in section 4.2 towards the end of that. I think the organization allows people to track it a lot better, but what we made sure to add in this, which would be page, and Ruby, who just stepped out, learned to lay this out and laid this out as our intern, and of course Kim helped her. You'll see on page 34, that's where that future PK1 school concept. And I believe that is a space, and now it's pretty clear this is just a concept drawing. It's not a board's committed to it. And then the next 2 pages, or the next page, I think is important. Made to add just a section for the community if there's that new maintenance facility concept. I'm not saying that's where it's going to go, but it holds that the community that they're going to have to build a facility for maintenance. So if you don't put it there, then the teams are going to have to figure out where and what they put. And then also 4.25 on page 35, a new board training facility. We included that. And then go ahead. Okay, wait a minute. I got too many words.
I'm just not familiar with anything about that. Can you fill me in on that,
Sure.
please?
There's been an ask from the board. It was kind of preview of what a boardroom would look like. As we saw, like tonight, this facility was kind of functional, kind of not. Plus, the law has changed in needing it. It doesn't say you have to do that, but this would be something that the board would want to consider when putting the next bond on.
So it's a room or like a whole building?
I think there's 10 ways to answer
Okay.
that question.
So nothing's, all right.
Mhm.
Just
And that's all the narrative says is the board's identified there's not a good training facility and or boardroom to have like complicated conversations that are well averaged or well recorded. That's law now. I think we've done a good job, but this room is not designed for what that law says. Kim, I'm struggling on my copy because mine isn't there. Yours is page 36. It has the stadium bathrooms. So that's in there. So just those would be changes, Mandy, as we really clarified some of those projects that were kind of hanging out there that weren't kind of orphaned. We made sure they were anchored for the community so they weren't lost and people weren't surprised like, oh, where'd this come from? It's all comprehensively there. Yes.
Is there a reason you need to approve this tonight? We just got this.
Yeah, it's the same thing that you've gotten since April.
So,
And you're welcome to take as much time as you need. There's no reason to
there's
rush
a lot
it.
here, and it's important.
So you want someone to table it until December. I don't know who made the motion.
That's what saying, yeah, that was definitive. Okay, so we'll bring this back for final approval discussion in December. Do you have other comments now, Julie?
So now we'll have time. Now it's in its final form. What you want us to do is email you where we're comfortable, where we have concerns, or what? How do we communicate it? And to whom? David, Joe.
Communicate it to. Why don't you communicate it to Joe and me, and we'll make sure we include Karen as a facility committee, and then Kim and I will try and adjust it. But there's no if there's a change in philosophy or structural kind
I
of
don't even
things.
know what I would. I don't know yet.
then that would be new, and that'd be like opening the whole conversation, which is fine, but that'd be something Joe would need to know to figure out how to line that out versus, hey, there's a misspelling here, this is not clear, those kind of things. That'd be something different.
Yeah, I mean,
One thing that I saw quickly is I didn't support having a maintenance facility out of the new bus farm.
Right.
And it's still there, so I'm just gonna repeat that it doesn't make sense when the center of gravity is, where our main schools are on campus. You're gonna spend 30 minutes driving out to get the snow plowed.
So figure out the narrative, because I think,
Yeah, okay.
and that would be a good one. If you got to tell the community you need a new maintenance facility, you could rewrite it and say you need it here or there or here, or kill that.
Yeah, it could be either be, well, that's where the two, okay, so here, I suggested that.
Yeah.
Alicia? What are you doing?
It does when you put the retention pond in, it'll shrink, but there may be capacity to add some of that there. It may be a strategy where the board on that particular issue wants to say we want to have a lot of micro spaces versus a large space. And there's ways to do that. So you put a space here, you're not going to get a full-blown facility there, but you might get some of it taken care of and some of it taken care of somewhere else. I think there's more than one strategy to tackle
Well,
that.
there's probably some equipment that is used more in certain places than other places, so maybe doing smaller facilities, multiple places is better anyhow.
Yeah, to me, I think like we have excess land. Everyone will tell you, and may or may not be disagreeing, that we need a bigger bus barn facility. So how do you tie that in? To me, the bigger thing is having a projected cost for what it would be. We could move that yellow and red line with plot for another facility of ours if it makes more sense. So to me, it's more of a, this is something in our future. This is an identified area, not final.
That was my question. How specific are we
Right,
getting here?
yeah,
Like
is it-
515
Right.
square feet. It doesn't have to be, it's just open for,
Yeah, so read
Future
through it
discussion.
and see if it lends itself to what you want it to read. Does it lend itself to that openness with identifying a concept? Or does it put you in a corner that you don't want to be in? I suppose if you don't want to be in that corner, you shouldn't go there.
Yeah, I mean, we still talk about additions to the schools, I believe, on here, which for the most part, this board is kind of entirely said, that's probably not going to work, or is that feasible?
oh, I like that.
I'm an advocate
But, so, just, and it is an update to the plan, so it's not.
On that section, I'll just let you know, tried to set up much more clarity of short term, medium term, and long term.
So we'll get that in.
Does it clearly lay that out? Is it cogent? Because in the first original thing, it wasn't really cogent. So I think now you should be able to access it. So now maybe we can make it great.
Okay.
Thank you for that tonight.
Motion to approve the audit.
Kurt Bag, so moved.
So,
Second.
any questions for Tom or Aaron? Good job again.
Thank you.
Nice to have a clean audit.
Yeah, thanks.
It's luxury.
David said that's one part of the job that's pass fail, so it's nice when you pass.
It's true.
It's nice when they only spend 5 minutes.
It's similar to soccer titles.
Still alive. It is a luxury to have a clean audit. A couple of us have been on here when it wasn't. And it's a lot more stress.
Paper vote?
All right, Dr. Beckman-Schmidt.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Lundberg. Aye. Mrs. Haskell. Aye. Ms. Schiffman. Aye. And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, meeting's essentially over, so board communications and committee reports. Those things.
We have a meeting on Thursday, and I was just looking at the agenda. There's not really anything. We're doing the audit for BOCES, which is also clean. Yeah.
That's because Mandy has done such a great job.
I'm really the connecting
Oversight,
piece.
that's the, yeah,
Just
that's,
saying, she stepped on and everything has been just, rainbows.
Yeah. No, and then same thing, we're just doing policy review, which BOCES too, going through all those. Yeah, do you have anything to add, David?
No, I don't see anything on this board meeting of interest. So I think they're doing a good job. I will just continue to say, I think the addition of our own sped coordinator, Evan McFadden, we still meet weekly and discussing issues. I think that's going positively. Good results for staff and the right support.
Facilities committee. Just talked a little bit about the plan, the updates to the plan. No new movement on any discussions with the county. Don't expect that anytime soon, to be frank. But then finishing the land use code. I think there is a Poncha Springs Parks development conversation happening that David is engaged with, and Karen and I have been invited. And it's kind of a community conversation, so in theory anybody can go, but just as they start planning their future, and I'm not sure if their election results of that sales tax passing changes their plans or not passing. So
So a focus group with Town of Poncha individuals doing this Parks and Rec, and it was I was very appreciative. They had a very much a collaborative approach, and were very interested in saying how do we work together in southern Chaffey County, and very open to thinking, not in a silo, but thinking of how we work together, which is the only way we're going to find success. So I was encouraged by at least their philosophical approach, starting their design work.
if there's anything else there. Communications, Jen, Matt, Tim.
Next big thing, was now annual report. So, ready for that has
Kind of the next big communications project. Bring your favorite color markers and you can just edit away. Yeah. Joke. Any other colors now? I think it's pretty awesome.
Okay, speaking of Cassie, Jen, anything you do report?
I mean, it has be. I did notice that there is a breakout session on the cell phone thing, so that's cool. Thanks, Casby, for taking recommendations on breakout sessions. I hope it's as amazing as I'd like it to be. And also, I'll send you guys an email soon on the phone issue, not Casby, potentially teaming up with public health if that's what we're into on the phone and social media stuff.
with regard to Casby, David and I are with a couple of CDE staff members and we're going to do a presentation. And some of the things that we're including on this is Mandy's more detailed superintendent evaluation, and we have Aaron's financial philosophy and gathering the information on those boundaries, and parking lot ideas.
Always need parking.
They're all mine over there. Nobody else is participating in that yet, but I'm hopeful.
The staff love it, Jody, because I take your sticky notes out and I wander around the building. Someday I can hand them to.
And then you come back with these.
Right, Aaron, it's lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, DAC, Ben.
I know nothing new on DAC. Am I missing something?
No, nothing new. We had another just kind of innovation kind of conversation about metrics, trying to generate more ideas from DAC on what other metrics might be interested in. It was encouraging because for the most part the feedback was pretty happy with where the district's at. It wasn't this big call for let's go to the moon tomorrow. So I found that just trying to listen an interesting piece of feedback to add in the mix.
Ben, I'd love for them to give us feedback on those pathways once that's more, approved or solidified or I'd love to see what they think. So it's cool to do that.
Yeah, that's the S meeting for subjective. There's the two DACs. There's the one that's kind of business oriented, and then the other is like future education oriented.
Okay.
Yep.
League of Women Voters, is that ship sailed? Are we still on here?
I'm just not partnered with it. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best effort for my passion. So I gave it back to
League of Women Voters, they're helping us host our work session next month around phones. And so hopefully they'll get more community members and you think about it from a community listening session. Just next board meeting.
So
So
at the meeting.
December 10th, the work session, December 10th would be that space, trying to use that because December's pretty full because with Thanksgiving, then you go to CASB, and then you have that meeting. I was like, oh, you can't, and then you have winter break, and so trying to leverage that space. So that's what we're working on. We've got that set up. So that'll allow them to bring in some of their constituents on the 10th of December, and just to push out that message more.
Yeah.
I'm getting looks that tell me I'm not communicating well.
Yes, you are, but we have something to, there was a miscommunication, but Public Health is hosting an event on January 9th. It's already set up. And so we would love to, some of us would maybe love to make the school board or the school district a part of that.
So maybe there's a lot of people doing the same thing.
Yeah,
Some
that's all
overlap.
news to me. So if somebody wants
Well,
to
Jen just forwarded me this email today. And I
You just sent it to me, they have my
send it to me, and
Or
I'll
ABAC.
I did this a
send
lot
it
of
to me,
things.
and I'll try and incorporate things in January. But the December 10th is a chance for you. I think we're also trying to invite a board member and maybe Superintendent Gates, who's in BV. They've already done this to try and give you guys a chance to talk to them about how their policies work and
But they,
their why. And
it'd be really cool to if you could just get them over here. Thanks. In
so,
advance.
trying to get some other speakers and just some other things, some people you can talk to. And trying to get more of the community to come out because we know last year was concessions.
This is more of a book club format.
Has Superintendent Gates indicated that the policy implementation has been successful?
I don't know. So that was the
Maybe we should sort of ask that question before we ask them to come down
How's it going?
So the League of Women Voters, who was trying to host it, they thought that would be an interesting idea to try and occur. So
Well,
and
and they
that's
did it, not on the cell phone conversation, but they did bring in board member, the superintendent, and the principal, and had a bigger discussion how like the League of Women Voters up north could support and shape and help and really access. The needs was really clear and big policy thing, good guidance on that. They were very aware of that. And support us on this.
school district locally who's stepped already ahead of you guys. So it's the leagues and seeing any reason that's bad for two school boards to talk to one another about how the policies work and learn from each other.
Into that collaboration.
Do we need to keep the league as a board communication?
I don't think so.
I think we just used, we figured we're going to use them as a partner. So, okay. Policy audit, any updates? I think you and Karen probably have a lot of work to do, and that's about it.
We got through that second reading of those. We got just one little rough edges there to clean up on some priority codes. And I will start to turn my attention now that the strategic facility plan's out, the SEL framework's out, I'll turn my attention to those I and J. That's December, January. I'll start evaluating those policies and dragging Karen along with it.
I'll need lots of help.
Okay, topics for future meetings, the calendar of events, CASB. I think sometime, hopefully, in the next few weeks, we can get more detail. Here's the happenings. I know we're getting a lot of different emails and invites.
There is the app, they just,
Non-CASB, like Salida School District plans.
yes, and I start putting that together. Just organized.
December 10th, the regular meeting. We really have many people here? Are we gonna do it up here? Or are we gonna do it
We'll
downstairs?
probably do downstairs, but once we get closer and get some event planning done, but downstairs is what we're looking at. For the work session, we may come up here for the actual meeting.
Okay, regular meeting for January, is January 14th.
I need to make sure, once do agenda review, which is the first, so. Agenda review for December? Agenda review.
Gender review.
Gender reveal.
Gender reveal.
We're live. We're live.
I think that every single month, every single month. That I'm going to the agenda review and Frank's having babies. So I've got Jen doing
Jen's doing
agenda
it.
review.
Is Ruby left too early? Ruby left too early.
Cut it here.
Now
You're okay with
continue
it?
doing it.
January 14th meeting, might do it
Again, our sugars very
and then our January, you forgot to put the quotes around retreat. Always a questionable thing on if and what content that would be. Jen, be prepared at agenda retreat as well as at CASB if we're going to talk and find that out on when that would be too. So we'll talk further about that in the future.
Do you have any suggested dates for that, Ryan? Did I just
No.
just say that?
I don't know. I don't have anything to recommend right now. I think we're okay.
We're gonna post something like we did last year, I said,
It's already up.
That's what I
It
just,
is,
that's
okay.
what I just asked him. Kathy had sent out that document. saying that we can
And it's, and we always post it already on the website, but before they go
So yeah, retreat, work session, TBD. I think the one conversation, maybe just if nobody else picked it up, but the key is going to be the way superintendent and Gal again. It's that January, February timeframe. So.
Please.
I mean, I wasn't sure that.
That's why I wanted to creep it in a question like.
I voluntold. Sorry.
Yes.
I voluntold.
He's cute.
And then the only other conversation, which some of you have had, some next meetings, whatever, is David's contract stuff to go along with that evaluation. So we'll get with you all and take that conversation from there. Looking for a motion for your. So maybe. Beautiful.
Second.
8:12.
Need a second.
Oh, you don't?
That's right, that's how I said.
Lights off.